To show you now. What are we going to see? Um, One of the key concept when you learn Excel, this is the final point where everybody is looking for. You want to work with the dashboard. So when you want to work with the dashboard, you might have some raw file, and then you can maybe you can quickly go ahead and do a pivot. You can make use of all those stuffs, and then maybe if you want, you can also create some charts, and you know how to create a chart, and you can come over here, you can click on the charts, and then you can modify the charts as you want. So I will show you this now. But I wanted to take it to a little bit of the next level, which makes the dashboard a little bit interactive and more intuitive, and which also looks good when you try to have some new concept included into it. So when you pick this up, the moment you select the table, you will see something like the format, layout, design, and so on. You have several other options down the line here. And then you have something called insert slicer. So what does that exactly does? If you wanted to, have just by clicking on east, I just see the east region. So just by a click, you will be able to, navigate through these options, and that looks little, interactive sort of a dashboard. Okay, what is the performance of the one of the associate named Ajay? So Ajay, you got on the west zone. He just made a sales after like 1,20,000 rupees. So that's a good number. So what about Mike? So how do we create that? So that's what I'm going to show you now. So I'm going to start everything from scratch now. So I have this the raw file here. Let's just close this out completely. I'm going to delete this up completely. So I have this the raw report. The raw report might be very bigger than this. That's not a problem. You know what you require. So once when you learn the concept, you can apply all by yourself. So you know how to apply a pivot. I click here. I click on the pivot table. Um, Maybe I wanted to create a table on the same sheet here. So let's just create the pivot table here itself. And I want the associate to be on the row label, and I want the sales on the value part here. So because that's the numbers that we are pretty much interested. Maybe I can say the region, I would like to put it on the column part. So that gives me a little bit of a neat representation. So Ajay, on the eastern zone, what's the sales he's having? And then on the north, what's the sales, the total sales? And we are able to cumulatively calculate the grand total for this specific associate. So this is okay, but how are we going to do introducing the slicers here? So that's what I wanted to talk about. And the slicer option is available only from the version 2010. It's not available in 2007. And there is another function called flash fill, which is not available even in 2010. If you have 2013, if you go to the data tab, you will be able to see something called flash fill somewhere here. So maybe you can check that out. But I will make sure that I have a recording and I will share that concept a little bit later with you. Okay, now I have this pivot table. I want to create the chart. So maybe I'm creating a 2D chart. So what I'm going to do is let this be just like this. Maybe I can just come over and make this sheet a little bit look neat. Let me tidy this place. So what I'm going to do, I will come over here and view. I don't want the grid lines. Let it look little uh, uh, pure white at the background, and maybe if you wanted to give some background color, something like you can select the whole sheet and make that little gray or whatever the color you want. That's absolutely your choice. So it's your choice. And then I'm going to cut this up, and then I'm going to paste it here, right? And maybe I can expand this table. If you see here, I will be able to expand this table so you can have a better look. And so the same way, when you click on this, you can modify some of the properties. Double, maybe you can right click, and then you can add a trend line. So how do you want that to look like, linear and so on. So you can see the trend is going upward. If you want, is that really going up, or if is that really going down? So these are all some sort of stuffs. But anyway, now the primarily what I want to see is what is that slicers? How does that make look really good? So before I do that, I'll make that look a little bit neater. So I will come to the format part. I don't want to have any outline, so it looks little good now, and I wanted to fill this maybe with little darker gray or maybe uh, something like this. So this looks little neat now, and I'll just click on the chart. I will go over to Analyze tab, and that's what I told you. We will click on the Insert Slicers. So we have a couple of options showing up here. So what is that I wanted to have an option that I want let the user to interact with, maybe the associates and then maybe the region. So these are the two attributes which I wanted to have interaction with. I hit OK. You see the two boxes comes up here, right? So this we can play a little bit with this here and we can make this look a little neater. I select this up under the option tab. You can see now I have only one column. I have to scroll down, which might not be a little bit convenient. You can try expanding this, but still the width of that keeps increasing, which is not something good. I want to increase the column by 2, so I increase it. So you have probably like you have two columns which looks a little bit good, right? And then I can adjust the width of that. So this is much better now. The same way, I don't want to have one column, and I want to have two columns for the region as well. So thereby I can have a complete view of my options. So I will just expand this. It just looks a little bit neat. You can also make modify the look and feel of this. So it's all your choice. If you like, you want to have a different colors, you can have a different color. So this is all your options. Now you see the moment I click on one of the associate Ajay, you see I'm just seeing only the Ajay's report, and these colors refers the region or the zone that he made a sales and the amount of sales he made. Maybe if you want to pick someone else, maybe you want to compare Ajay with Williams. So you can click on control and then you can click on Williams. So you're picking two different persons' information. So you see William is doing much better. His contribution is increasing. So the trend is a little bit increasing in nature. So you're able to analyze with that. So all with just one simple click on the slicers window. Maybe if you wanted to compare only one region, you're not worried about the east, north. We are from south, and let's just click on south, southern part. Okay, even William is good on the southern part, so that's a good number he's having. So you're able to make some decision based on that. So you can have your presentation a little bit look. The looks is impressive and it's a little interactive. That's the primary advantage of having the slicers and making your dashboard interactive and intuitive. So you can, when you click on this into or when you clear this, or you can also press the shortcut key Alt C, which will clear the filter, which will have all the selections enabled. So this is the dashboard you can create with the pivot table, and then you can insert slicers. By inserting a slicer, you are creating a dashboard which is interactive in nature, right? So you got that concept, right? Great, perfect. So I'm going to save this file. I have this file and I will email you this once when we are done with the session now. Okay, okay, should be fine. Okay, so we have this file safe and good. So I have here, so these two files which I've already sent you. Now, this is the heart of the topic of the Excel VBA. Okay, I'm going to open up my folder and I'm going to create another folder and inside which probably here. So this is where we have your files. I'll create one more folder here. So I'm going to exclusively call this as macro, right? And so when you want to work with macro, maybe I can say basics. I can open this up. If you want to write macro, before you get into the editor window, all that stuffs, I just wanted to give you a very quick introduction about this. Now, if you want to work with macro, probably you see this developer tab is already enabled here because this is a tab. As a developer, you must know how to enable this. Without this developer tab, you will not be able to work with that. So at the moment, I'm going to come over here. I can also come to options and do this way, or I can just come over here. I think right click and customize the ribbon. When I do this way, I can directly come to this window. So you don't have to go file options, something like that. Right? So when I uncheck this and hit OK, I won't have this developer tab here anymore. I right click, again I customize the ribbon, I make sure I put a check mark, I hit OK. So now I have the developer tab. So this is how we um, include the developer tab or initiate the developer tab on the Excel worksheet. Yeah, let me just confirm the recording. Yep, the recording is going on fine. All right. So that's how we initialize it. And then there is one more concept called trust center settings, which you might be remembering that when we were talking about the options. So when we come over to options and trust center settings and macro settings, by default, most of the Excel, when you install up, the default setting is disable all macro with notification. But here in this case, we wanted to make sure that we enable all macros because we are going to write the macro. So there's nothing potentially dangerous at this point of time. If you don't enable, you will not be able to run macros. So I'm going to hit OK. So this is done. So the second part is done. Now, let's talk about that macro recording. Have you ever done the macro recording before? Okay, fine. Let's say you're going to work in a team where you need to prepare a report, maybe on a daily basis, or it might be submitting a report on a monthly basis, however it might be. So maybe you can say, or maybe I can say financial report, right? Financial report. I can say weekly. I mean, just I'm just showing you how the recording works. So what I want to do now, when I say recording, I'm going to do some series of steps. I'm going to perform some activity in my Excel. Maybe I'm just typing something, and then I wanted to give the filling of the cell, and I want to make this look little bold. I want to make kind of italics, and then I want underline. So this looks little neat. And if you want to increase the size of this, maybe you're increasing the font, all this is fine. So you are just trying to um, type something into it, and this is what you're going to do every week or maybe every month. The 1 week is over, and the next week you come again, and then you type the same stuff. And this is kind of a boring stuff which take like 5-10 minutes. What if we have something on the one button click that works fine? So that's what we're going to see now. So what did we hear? I type something on a cell C1, and then I fill the color, and then I bolded it, and then I made it italics, and then I underlined it. So I'm going to just do the same thing on the macro recording board, and let's see how that the recording works. There are three ways you can do a recording. One, you will see the recording option right at the bottom left side, just close to this the window button. You can see here. You can click here, or you can come to the view tab. You can click on macros, and then you can click on record macro. This is second option you have, and then you can come to the developer tab. You can click on record macro. So there are three ways you can do a recording. That's absolutely your choice. So either anything is absolutely fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this window. Now first my first recording. Um, Maybe here you have a couple of options. Normally we pick this workbook or we pick personal workbook. We never pick this new workbook. I will tell you what does this the benefit of personal macro workbook. For now, we will discuss only about this workbook. Description is good. Maybe you can you're writing a program, and maybe after 2 months later you open up this macro and want to know what it's all about. If you have no description about it, you might not know what it is. So you will completely forget it. Or if you're not there, someone is going to work on this and they want to have some basic idea what the macro is all about. So if you have a description, it's good. So you can say this is my first macro, whatever it is that makes sense to you. The moment I hit OK, anything that I'm going to do on the cell, that's going to get recorded. You can see the cursor is now on the cell F10. Now I want to move down to the cell C1. So that will be noted down. The Excel will be writing down this code. Now I'm going to type report. Let's just type report for a moment. And then what I'm going to do is I just click on home tab. I'll click somewhere here. So this is enabled now. This is also going to get captured and I will show you how the recording works there. I'm going to highlight the cell C1. I'm going to fill this up. This is okay. I'm going to make it bold and then I'm going to make it italics and then I'm going to underline this. So let's just stop this. So we have done like 4 5 series of steps. Now the question is how I'm going to run this macro. I'm going to go into the sheet 3 and I wanted to run this. There are a couple of ways you can run this. Maybe you can come to the view and then you can click on view macro. So there is your macro. You can click on run. There it is. And then maybe you have another sheet. The next week you come, you don't have to type everything again. You don't have to modify all those steps. That's going to take a lot of your time. So again, you can come to the developer tab. You can click on macro window. This shows up this. You can click on run and it is there. So is there any other way? Yes, we have another way. I can click on insert. I can just click on this basic form control button and then maybe I can just I just created a button and I'm going to assign the macro to the button and just right click so that you will be edit this button. Let's say run, something like that. So I just click on this. Maybe let's say I will just completely clear this up and I run it up here. The button is currently here. So I wanted to run this up here. So that works. So this is how we assign button. All right, so recording looks very simpler for your a simple task which you do repeatedly every day or maybe every week, which you think doesn't make any sense. When you try recording it, that helps you save a lot of time and that helps you to eradicate unnecessary errors in the report. All right, so that's totally fine. But how does the code looks like? So that's what you might be interested now. So we have to come to the developer tab and we will have a separate window where you will modify your code. Where is that I'm going to modify the code? So you have two options. You can click on the Visual Basic option or the tab, or you also see the shortcut key, which is nothing but Alt F11. So I can click on Alt and then F11. It opens up the editor window. So this is the editor window. Now currently we don't have any code that is visible to us now because after the installation, this is the first time I'm opening up the macro here. So we have three predominant window in the Visual Basic for Application editor window. We normally call this as a editor window. So this portion is called the project. This portion is called property. And this portion is going to be a module or where you're going to type the code. Now this is gray kind of stuff. It's something like, you have this minimize, something look like this. Now, when you open this Excel and you have this information, the same way, you have to open up some module. So all the code that you write here will be available under this module. When I double click this, you have your code here. So you see the comment here. So when you put the single quotes and type something, that will be a kind of a non-executional statement. So this will not be executed. Anything that looks green, that's only for your understanding. That's only for the information. Right? Okay. See now what happens is you can see right. I was somewhere else on the Excel sheet, and when I clicked on C1, the C1 is selected. You may not be able to have a very clear eye. And I'm going to take you through on a very detailed perspective of how all these things works. But now we are just trying to understand a little bit about the code that what we have recorded. There are certain areas which may not even have to worry about it, but don't worry. So what we're trying to do is we are selecting the C1. So that's what is select object. And then we call something called active cell. So that's the active cell. C1 is the active cell because that's what we selected. And what are we trying to do? We are trying to type the information called report or the text called report into that active cell. And then again, I hit enter, so the cursor moved to the D cell. That's not highlighted here, no worries. But the final step, when I hit enter and I clicked on the C1 again, so that's captured here. And then I did some bold, and then I just gave some colors. So all these things are captured here. There are some unwanted things. The color, the tint shade is not required, and then the pattern tint is not also required. It opens up by default when you record it. So sometimes when you record, you also get some extra little bit of codes which you may not even require it. But for now, you can ignore it. You don't have to worry about it. So here you can see maybe you can say like bolding the font, and then I'm making it italics, so and underlining the text. This is what is important for us here. Now, something is went wrong, and you want to make this the heading change. You don't really want to re-record this. So maybe I want to rename this. So you want to modify the existing macro. Very simple, pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is instead of report, I want to call this as a monthly report. I'm just going to type monthly. I'm going to give a space, right? Instead of running the macro by going in here by clicking on macro, or maybe you come to the view tab and then you click here, view macros. You can also run this here. It works here. So monthly report. And you can also run from here. So how do I run here? You have this the triangular green button, and when you click on this, that works. So now my cursor is on C1, so that's why that's how it's programmed. Now I wanted to write down a code on maybe let's say C2. So let's delete this C2, uh, rename the C1 to C2, and then I wanted to again select C2. I can click on this. You see now the code will be writing onto the C2 cell. It's writing up there. So this is what recording a very simple macro and then modifying your existing macro. Maybe let's say for example, no, I don't want to do an underlining on my cell. So what do I do? You can just maybe delete this, or you can put a single quote which is just to the left side of your enter key, and when I move the cursor down, it becomes green. Now, let's say I'm going to modify this again. Instead of C2, I'm going to type like um, D5. Let's say D5. And I'm also going to type the same thing here, D5. I'm going to run this up again. You will see there will be no underline. You see, there is no underline. So here, no, I didn't get your question. Yeah, D5, that's correct. No, that is the previous one. That we already had it. Maybe what I will do is I will clear this. There is one important property of the macro that you should remember. Once when you run a macro, you cannot do an undo process to revert to the previous settings. Once macro is run, that's run. Yeah, I will just clear it now. I will rerun the macro. You now have it on D5. This is your question, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is you can just copy this code and you can just run this, but I don't recommend you copy and paste it because since it is a macro part and I want you to take some time and practice then and there, at least a little, that will help you a lot in cases. So here is a code for you. Um, just try doing the steps on your computer maybe today when you have some time. Just try this out. Just do the same thing. I will send you this file. Now I have this macro. I have to save the file. If I don't save the file, what will happen? The macro what I've written will be gone. So when I save the file, I have to make sure that this is saved as an appropriate file, which we discussed a long time back. So when I pick this up here, I have to make sure this is a macro enabled workbook. If you don't save this way, you will not be able to have the macro, right? So this is my basic macro. So I'm going to save this here. So this is okay. You can ignore this. All right. So this is one step. Now I wanted to talk about one more thing for you. And probably rest of the topic we can continue maybe tomorrow because that's going to be the pretty vast topic. We will need like 45 minutes, at least 1 hour. If you start, it might go up to 11 o'clock. You might have your next day task. So how does module comes into the picture? So that you need to know. Can I change the name of the module? We can do that. You can see the property here. You can come here, you can rename this as basics. So you can see the name of the module has changed. Normally, we can create a new module. You have to click on insert. You can click on module. This is one way. There are several other ways which I will teach you as we move on. Now, what if I'm going to write from the scratch? I want to give you the very simple macro. So what we normally do is we call this as a subroutine or a procedure. So my program, my new code, whatever you want. So what is the sub is by default you have to always write this is what called subroutine, and then you have to give a space, and then you have to give a name for the macro. And I missed to inform you that whenever you write, give a name for the macro, you have to make sure it does not start with a number. There should be no space between the characters. So those are two important properties that you should remember. And then the moment I hit enter, it will automatically complete the code with end sub. So I'm ending my code. I wanted to write a very simplest small code. I want to have some message window. So the simple syntax is MSGBOX. We call it as the message box. Maybe I can say like, hello, Subha, welcome to World of Macro. Maybe sometimes you will have to introduce this kind of message box when you write a code. This is the simplest code. When I run this, I can click here or I can click on F5. When I click on F5, you see this message window opens up. Right, so this message box has got immense application. You will use this in several occasions. So this is the simplest syntax. We will learn a lot about the other concepts that deal with macro. So this is the simplest code that you start writing on your own. So again, you come here, so you can rename this hello world. Give a space and then you can write like this. And then you can also export this file. You can right click and then you can say export the file, and then you can save it wherever you want. Maybe I will move this down. Maybe I have it on downloads and formula and pivots and macro. I can save it. So this will be saved as a BAS file type. So when this is saved as a BAS file type, when I send you the file and when you open it, you can import back into the VBA window. So you can click on import file and you can look for the file and you will have the code ready for you. So you see here the basic one, right? So you have the code here. So you don't have to copy and paste it. You can just do an import and export of process. That way you will be able to retrieve your code. Right, so what we learned today is just a very basic concept: enabling developer tab, what is trust center settings, and enabling the macro is very important, and introduction to the macro recorder is all what we saw. And then you saw the editor window and other windows, like we have three other windows. The 300 windows, like the property is what it talks about, the property of the code and some of the sheets that you have, which you're going to see in detail as we move on. So the project window, property window, and the editor window here. So what if this is closed and this is gone? You don't have to worry about it. You come over to the view tab, you can click on project explorer, that opens up. You click on view, you click on the property window, and the property window is opened up. So that's it. So that's pretty simple and straightforward. So we are concluding today with this editor window and other windows, and VBA macro code, a simple macro code. Five basic stuff you have seen. But understanding the message box, input box, data type is going to take a lot of time. And